Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I will tell you, I did not expect so many people on the first talk. So it's like, oh my God, I need to now be cool and, you know. So the Witcher card game is, for me, a very important project. This is something I've been heading up from the very beginning. And today I want to talk about the struggles and all solutions we came up with. Some tidbits about how to lead a very diverse team and how to organize them so the product at the very end is good quality. So those are our so-called premium cards. This is the output at the very end of what we're creating artistically as a card game. And for some of you who aren't familiar with card games, having premium cards, or how they call them sometimes foils, golds, is a tradition going way back to the part of the history when the card games were actually cards, they were physical. At the very beginning, they had sheen on them or were made with special materials, and then it was adapted to digital games. And when Gwent was still a super secret project that was being worked on by just a couple of people, I got the task of coming up with how our premium cards would look like. And I had a problem, like, look at this is amazing. And so when my boss came over and said, hey, you need to do something original, it's like, oh, cool, really, thank you. So being a creative person, I did take my time and tried to find something to get inspired. And I usually go to same places on the internet and look at cats. And this is literally the image that blew my mind. It's like, this is it. This we should do this. So I grabbed my phone and ran into the head of command in the studio, Adam Badowski. It's like, this is how the cards should look like. And he told me to go out and think about this again. But I did convince him. Everything was okay. We made prototypes, and these are the first cards we made. We were happy with them. They were cool, but they still didn't have this 3D cool effect that we were actually aiming for. So we started doing more prototypes, tried to push the feeling of depth even more. And at that point, one of our animators came over and looked at it. It's like, yeah, it would be cool if this animated. Sure, it would be cool. So we started prototyping this. And at the very beginning, the animations were simple, kind of like the whole effect of 3D, but we kept enhancing it. And here is a comparison of what we actually have now. The depth of the card is bigger. The animations work together with VFX to give the impression of a living image, a little kind of TV that shows you what's going on in the world of The Witcher. So Geralt will help me kind of explain step by step how we achieve this. When you want to create a card, obviously, to create a premium, you first need a standard version of illustration. And we have a bunch of very talented people working on our illustrations, but even at this step, we already make sure that we produce high quality. In The Witcher 3, where Gwent was like a smaller game, the illustrations were pretty simple. The game was pretty simple. The Gwent in The Witcher 3 was pretty simple when it comes to visuals, and most cards were just people standing there looking ominous at you. We decided to do something more. We wanted to show something about the characters by visuals. So you look at the visuals and you already think something about the characters. So Often we go even as far as to concept the characters. This is actually the same character, Stefan Skellen. He was only mentioned in the novels. And we just didn't want him to look, pompous like this, because obviously this could be one of his outfits, but he was all about fighting, and he was a very dangerous person. The little star he has actually is what gave Ciri the nasty scar on her face. So we didn't want a character like this to just be drawn and that's it. And we do it very often, and soon you might see a bunch of new monsters from the Witcher universe that we specially designed and took care of only to kind of illustrate them in Gwent. So after the concept is done, we start thumbnailing. And the thumbnails are very important because the cards in the game at some point become very small. So as a player, you need to recognize them instantaneously and see them among other cards. So we make sure every card has different patterns, different color, light and dark values. Once we're happy with this, we keep pushing the illustration to a more refined state. And many artists do it many different ways, but even in the color stages, we make sure the bright and the dark parts are always well readable. The silhouette is very readable. So again, from kind of, let's say, far away, you can see it quite well. Here are some examples of our artwork going from sketch to full illustrations. And here I would like to talk about our system of reviews. Actually, our illustrators work together in a way. We show each other our work and critique each other. So we push each other to achieve better stuff. So during the review, you can say, hey, you could do this better, or hey, you're doing this amazingly, keep doing it. And thanks to this, thanks to the peer review, we're managing to make every single illustration really nice. Another thing that happens in the peer reviews is actually defining the flavor of the character. So just looking at the illustration again, you can already imagine something about the character. And sometimes we hide little things from the story. For instance, this lovely character here, Johnny, if you've played The Witcher 3, you might recognize him. And we wanted this creature to be whimsical, therefore the butterflies and the beautiful scenery. But he's also a character that has a very distinct way of behaving and speaking. Therefore, we decided he's gonna make a poop. And it's very well hidden, so there's nothing terrible showing, but still it's something for the fans of The Witcher to recognize. Or, for instance, Vilgefortz, character that never appeared in the Witcher games, but is the key villain of the novels. And we wanted him to be terrible person. And again, there might be some spoilers for those who haven't read the books, but do recognize the other character. But this is all about giving the new players, the newcomers, something to think about and to like it. And then for the people who are already into the franchise to recognize and be excited about. After the illustration is done, we have 2D cleanup phase. And this is something very interesting, and I don't think anyone industry does it in this way. Because even though we do work on layers when we're doing illustrations, the person illustrating usually doesn't paint more or doesn't paint anything that's behind the character. So our 2D cleanup team is a bunch of amazing artists that can actually replicate the style of every single other illustrator on our team. And the first phase of the 2D cleanup is getting rid of all the particles, all the effects that would be later on brought back by the VFX team. They also extend the picture to give us a little bit of wobble space when we start putting everything in 3D. And as I've said, they also finish up everything that is behind the characters. They separate everything into neat layers. And that's the thing, that's why it's a cleanup. They clean everything up, everything is ready for the 3D implementation. And the 3D modeling, too, is kind of curious when it comes to Gwent, because actually we start with the texture, we start with the flat image, and then push everything. It's kind of like, you can imagine having a piece of paper and pushing against it to create a relief. And our artists have currently special tools to do this. At the very beginning, they were trying to do it by eye, and we ended up with many geometries looking like spaghetti if you looked at it from the side. But currently, we managed to streamline it and make it much easier for them. After the 3D model is done, we need to rig it because we want it to animate. Especially that our models do not only animate to the side, like an Egyptian way, they actually have depth, and even though they're not full meshes when it comes to geometry, they fully animate in many ways. And here is a little demonstration of my friend and colleague from work, Brad, who's rigging this model. So as you can see, there's many bones in the skeleton that allows us for lots of movement and creates neat effects that bring us a lot of joy. And you wouldn't believe how often it happens, and I just walk over to the animators like, what are you doing? But it's a nice thing to do every now and again. So after everything is rigged, after we have the skeleton in the model, we start animating. And we have two types of animation, two main types. We have the intro, which here in this example of the Draugr, you can see he walks into the scene and then starts a loop. And sometimes it's only a loop because the intro is not needed or the illustration doesn't allow it. And same goes for real time and slow motion. In many cases, the action on the card is so strong that if we just animate it and in real time, it's like, whoosh, they're gone, and the card is empty. So in cases like this, we decided for not really a slow-mo, but it's more of a second of always ongoing action. So we animate it going slowly back and forth to give the impression of something endless. And here, those are real-time animations with some intros. One of my favorite cards is this gentleman here, Gals. This is exactly how most of our illustrators look like. It's like painting is like, oh, I'm amazing. In this was also one of our tests for facial expressions. And considering our meshes are pretty simple, the effects is honestly quite nice. The other type is the slow-mo. So at the beginning, we have the intro and then the looped, very slow animation. And in the example of Siri here, you can also see that animators often do little mock-ups for the VFX artists, as in they give them the rhythm for the animation or actually pull the whole. Let's go on this show. There we go. No, the Siri refused to work with me. But they draw special lines for them to follow, so the animation and the VFX are even more nicely tied together. And the visual effects, as much as illustrators have fun and the animators have fun, visual effects artists, those are Michael Bays, and they always come up with the weirdest stuff and give the most flavor to the whole illustrations. So they not only add the VFX from the original, they often add more. They make the cards even brighter, cooler, more dynamic. They coordinate it with animation. This is very important because just stuff flying there wouldn't be as impressive as actually effects that follow with the character or give action. They do all sorts of light effects, so we're not only restrained to the painted in, the baked in light, they add more. They also do all sorts of projectile simulations, foliage. They literally are wizards. I always come over and are just very impressed with their work. All tied together. It's like, this is a great example. Geralt, just in animation, doing the art, it's like, yeah, go, bye, my love. But with the VFX, it actually enhances the stopped in motion dynamic. You can see the rocks that are added at the very front. They also add depth. Suddenly, it's not only the Geralt and the two guys that give you perspective, but also all the little debris flying in the air. Same Vilgefortz, not super impressive, only in the animation, but once you add the VFX, this already feels just terrible. The burning and the terrible smile. And this card. This is a very special card for me because it set a trend. And before I talk about this, you can also see here the little cues from the animator when to put a wave. And this set a trend of them being super sneaky. And because one time I was reviewing the game and everything is live, I'm super happy and suddenly this happens. And to this day, I have no idea how many things like this they just put into the game without anyone knowing. So every once in a while, I go on Reddit. It's like, oh no, that's again. I mean, I'm super happy. I'm not gonna stop them, but I wish they told me. But it just keeps happening. So have an eye open if you play Gwent for those. Apparently, they usually happen 2 minutes, 3 minutes in as you watch the animation, just to make sure the art director won't notice when she just passes and quickly reviews stuff. After the visual effects are done, we go to sound effects. And here, be ready, there's gonna be sound, and it might be spooky, especially that we're viewing Vilgefortz. And sound effects are another layer that adds even more to the card. And as much as the animation adds to our existing illustrations, then the 3D effect and the VFX sound, it brings it yet to another level. PG-13. So there's stuff like this that adds flavor to just what's actually happening. This is more action. But there's more little cues that our sound designers put into the game. For instance, Geralt. In the background, you can hear it's very subtle, but there's like a sling sound of the sword and metal, and that also adds to the flavor of this illustration. Or Dijkstra. This is one also of my favorites because of the sound. In the background, you will be able to hear door closing, opening. Who was this? Was this a messenger or someone who he just had as a visitor. So those are little subtle ways that we keep adding to the stories and enable the player to feel the situation. And this makes it really cool to watch when we talk with players, what's your favorite premium card? And the answer is always different. Like, there is, of course, a bunch of that people generally like, but every single person has their own favorite for many different reasons, and sometimes it's even sound because they imagine something that's happening, even though we never planned for it. But sure, like, let's go with it, because that's the whole point: making people's imagination run wild and try to tell the story from The Witcher. But this is kind of more or less how you make a card, but as you probably know, that's not everything that you have to do. Then there is the optimization. So we need to be careful when it comes to premium cards for one reason. You can have lots of cards at the screen at the same time. So at some point, if you play decks that are have lots of premium cards, you can see games slowing down. So we don't want that. So we're very careful when it comes to joint count, particle count, and overdraw. We always, during reviews, turn on overdraw to just check if everything is okay. We also have to be careful with the poly count, which makes it even more challenging for our 3D artists to actually achieve nice shapes in the great 3D effect. Texture size obviously also plays a role. We have to be careful to put the atlases together in a neat way so we can have the detail where we want and take away the detail if it's covered or not needed. And there's also the animation length, which we also kind of have to stick to a given amount of time, not to drag it out and make everything less optimized. We also have a few tricks that you might find interesting. For instance, this card, it animates, and the model actually looks like this. And this is interesting because it is animated, but there's no joints. Actually, the animation is baked into the mesh. So we can spawn those guys as particles and not actually models, which allows us to make infinite amount of soldiers just walking. We use it for little animals like rats, like birds, and in many cases, stuff like this. So here, this is the kind of work in progress version of this, and we can just have soldiers for days and without losing quality and without making the performance go down. So that's it. That's how we create the cards. It's a very long process, and the big thing about this is that it involves lots of different teams that have to work together to achieve it. We cannot have a system that's like, yeah, I'm done with the illustration, I don't care, and then just move it on to other people, because then we think it would be soulless. And thanks to our cooperation, we can actually achieve very good results. And we achieve it because we have a very clear division of tasks. Everyone does their own thing, but we still communicate with each other a lot, not only within the teams where we have peer reviews, because I told you about the illustration peer reviews, but it actually happens with every single department. 3D modeling has their own peer reviews, animation, VFX, sound effects, they all always look at each other's work and give feedback so we can just elevate it to new heights. We have also standardized time frames. So every person knows that an illustration takes up this amount of days. 3D modeling should take up this amount of days. Together, the whole process takes about 28 man days to finish. Of course, split between different people and coordinated together. thanks to coordination, we also have a common vision and decision making. So if someone wants to add something, no one stops them, unless it's a bad idea, but that rarely happens. But people are excited and make other people help them achieve something. We coordinate everything thanks to our lovely coordinators. Those are people who are kind of messengers between the team, because it would be chaotic if literally everyone talked with everyone else, and that does happen sometimes. Like there's no closed doors. We're all work together, but to make the flow information more streamlined, we do have people that have all the info and can relay the info to other people. We also work on quality and consistency supervision without micromanaging. So in a way, when I told you about the little Easter eggs in VFX, I completely trust my VFX people, so I don't review it as often. It's like more good direction. Go ahead, keep going. If they want to add something, sure, go ahead. It's amazing. You should do it. All we really care in a way is quality and consistency. So it's, again, directing without specifically telling someone, oh, you should do this, because anything different will look bad. The artistic freedom is very important for everyone, because if you produce so many cards, it can get boring if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's why we try to avoid it. Everyone does something they like, and we strive for it as much as possible. For the same reason, building up and not just copying is important. We don't want just to redo the stuff that is on the illustration. It's just doing what someone else did, but moving. So that's why we allow people to add more, build the story, make those cards even bigger and grander. And trust, as I've said, this is one of the key things. The good atmosphere, trust between people, working together as a team to achieve a common goal and have fun during it is kind of the most important part in our team. And I strongly believe this is the reason that we actually succeed and create really, really cool stuff. Thank you very much, guys. That's